So, for this video I wanted to talk about, do kind of like a workshop type of thing instead of, you know, a sermon, as it were. And what it pertains to is this concept of giving things to God. You know, everybody who's been in church has heard that. You know, I'm really struggling with depression, I'm really struggling with, you know, this addiction, this whatever, and, you know, it seems like the sound advice is always, oh, well, give it to God. He'll take it. And the struggle there is that a lot of people don't know how to do that. You know, it's always kind of a point of frustration for a lot of people because, you know, it's very tongue-in-cheek and it's good advice. They're right. The problem is that, you know, a lot of people have no conception for what that looks like. So, let's kind of get down to it and just kind of get into the brass tacks of the whole concept, and what it really boils down to is very, very simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. And basically what it boils down to is this. To give it to God is to be willing to relinquish entirely this thing, whatever it is. If it's oftentimes this is applied to emotional things like depression, anxiety, anger, lust, things like that. Or rather, a predilection towards lust. And see, the truth of the matter is, it's, you know, I say relinquish, and what I mean by that is just that. It's a matter of no longer justifying yourself. No more, I can be lustful because I'm a man, and that's how I naturally am. No. Unfortunately, that's not really true. Whatever you may have come to believe based off of justifications made by secular studies and things like that, that's not really how things work with God. No more justifications, no more lying to yourself, no more holding on to it even though you keep saying you want it gone. No more taking comfort in it as being a part of you. And more than that, no more letting it be a part of you or letting it define you. See, it's that willingness that is described here. And it really is just a willingness. There's nothing that you can do. You can't say, I'm no longer depressed now. That's not going to work. I'm sorry. I know that there are a lot of self-help gurus and things like that that want you to believe that, and I'm sure that they have some people who that's worked for. But the truth of the matter is that most of them, it's a load of BS. So, just to be very forthright with you, and it's not easy. See, some of this stuff doesn't... One of the frustrating things with it is that sometimes it doesn't go away. Take, for instance, like, I prayed about, about different views of myself. You know, I kept asking God for his eyes as far as, you know, my personality was concerned. And I tell you this as kind of an example. You know, I struggled with that. And there was a lot of, you know, there was always this overwhelming tendency to kind of view myself through a very particular lens, and it was that I didn't really view myself as important or valuable in any way. I saw no value in myself. And I used to pray about that, because I knew that God did not agree with that. In order to understand him better, then I had to be able to see things the way that he saw them. And that was a struggle. And what it came down to was, you know, I kept praying about this and nothing changed. Which ultimately is something that happens with a lot of people. Somebody dealing with deep depression may experience this, or, you know, fits of rage, they have anger problems, or things like this. Or lust. Dear sweet heavens, lust can be one of those things, but the frustrating thing is that they tend to be symptomatic. And in my case, that was the issue. Because this was just a branch on a huge tree, which was a massive abandonment issue that I kind of carried with me from the time that I was just a tiny little boy when I was 3 years old. You know, from that point forward, I had believed myself, you know, invaluable, rather, not invaluable, but completely lacking in any value whatsoever. I saw no value in myself. I was willing to accept, I was willing to accept a lot of things about myself that weren't true. You know, if people were talking, I'd shut up, and I expected that nobody really cared, and nobody really wanted me around, and things like that. And it was easy to believe that because of this kind of overbearing issue that so many things were attached to. And see, the point is that, you know, when it came to light that this abandonment was an actual thing, you know, I prayed for that, and lo and behold, that was healed. And everything went with that. I mean, there was just this huge, huge, huge change. The issues with value, the issues with, you know, with how I viewed myself and things like that, that all changed. Because the truth of the matter is that, you know, it was what God was really edging at, and that's the struggle. Sometimes it's not about the symptom, sometimes it's about the disease, the greater issue. You know, if somebody has cancer and you're giving them cough syrup, it's not going to cure the cancer, they're still going to die. That's why you treat the cancer. In my case, that's how things were. It came down to that. So that ended up being a major thing. You know, and that's something that a lot of people go through, is that, you know, if you're praying for something and it's not getting fixed, maybe there's something bigger. Maybe there's a reason why God's not fixing it. Maybe it comes down to something that runs a lot deeper. And it's going to involve some time and energy spent, you know, thinking, digging, rooting around, trying to find what's really going on. You know, you might be focused on this, you might have tunnel vision and you're focused on this one thing, and you're not noticing, you know, the monster it's attached to. You're scared of a tentacle when it's the mouth and the fangs that are really terrifying. So, as far as this is concerned, you know, it took, you know, that's just kind of a point of context here, is to, you know, consider that. And the truth of the matter, kind of another thing to address with this is that, you know, there are a lot of people who come and pray for healing. And see, you know, physical stuff and emotional stuff are very different. Only because with physical stuff, it's there. You know, if you have a broken hand and you ask God to heal it, and He doesn't heal your hand, you're not going to run around and claim that your hand is healed. Because unfortunately, you're going to try to grab something and it's going to hurt like heck. Because that's not how it works. You know, it either is or it isn't. With the emotional stuff, it's a little more tricky. People want to be healed. They want to be done. But they never want to go and dig through, which is sometimes what God needs us to do. So one of the other things you need to drop is the whole fake it till you make it idea, or the name it and claim it thing. It doesn't work. I'm sorry. If you claim that, you know, if you have a pride issue, for example, and you ask for healing, and then you decide that you're going to claim that healing, something along the lines of, Lord, I thank you for healing me of my pride, and then you go out into the world, and lo and behold, you're still an arrogant prick. How is the world going to respond to that? Number one, you're going to be a hypocrite, running around telling people that God healed you of your pride. Nobody can tell, because it didn't happen. And this is important to consider, because the truth of the matter is that you will give those people a reason to not believe in God. It is that simple, and that responsibility will be on your shoulders. The weight of lies, something like that, crazy story. The other side of it is that you'll be lying to yourself, which means you're going to set yourself up for a lot of damage. It's why it's very important to be honest about healing. If you pray for something and God doesn't take it away, it doesn't mean He's mad at you. It doesn't mean that you're not worthy. It doesn't mean anything. All that it means is that either there's something deeper or it's just not time yet. Maybe there's something that you need to learn. Maybe there's more that needs to be dug up. It's not that cut and dry as to simply seek God and seek healing and then be healed. Sometimes there's more to it. But as far as the healing itself and what that looks like to give it to God, it is just that simple. A willingness to be free of it, to let it go. One of the major issues is comfort, because this is an identity thing. And like with that thing with my abandonment issues, that was part of my identity, and that was a substantial piece of it. It had been a part of who I was from the time I was 3 years old till the time I was 27. That was a thing. And when God took it, that was really jarring, because suddenly, there was a hole in my person, in my character, and God had to replace that with other things. So, it's important to understand that, I say it's simple because it is, but it is not easy. Because that whole relinquishing thing means that you might have to become a very different person. You might have to step out into a place that you're not comfortable with. And there's always that fear that, you're going to ask and nothing's going to happen, or that you're going to be healed and then you're just going to go back to the same person, or nothing's going to change, or, whatever. Just don't worry about it. That might seem tongue-in-cheek to say, but it is the truth. God will change you. It might be bigger, it might be a bigger issue, it might be something else, but God will change you. So when you want to be changed, comfort is a big thing. It's a big problem with this. We always want to be justified, we don't want to be wrong, we just want to stay the same and go to heaven. The problem is that, our mentality in general is that we're focused on not going to hell, most of us. That is why most Christians follow God. If there was no hell, they wouldn't be Christians. They would be doing whatever they wanted in the world. The irony is that with God, His prerogative is to put you into heaven. He's preparing you for that day, for salvation, to be complete and whole and in His kingdom forever and ever and ever. Do you see the difference in perspective? We're afraid of hell. He wants us to go to heaven. We don't want to go to hell. He wants us to go to heaven. It's a very, very different perspective. He wants to make you perfect. You want to be good enough. He's the one who sets the rules, unfortunately. So, it's something that you gotta let go. And if that means changing the entire identity of who you are, because God can do that. It's a lot of stuff that you don't need. A lot of stuff that you were forced to believe about yourself. This video is for those people who are ready to relinquish that, to let it go, to stop, to change. It is that simple. It isn't easy though. So, don't become demoralized in the face of the struggle. Just understand that something needs to change, it will. And God will heal you. Just be willing to let it go. And I do mean that. Completely, honestly willing to let it go.